Hello, Anna. A huge welcome to the podcast. Thank you so much. How are you doing today?
Hey, well, thank you so much for inviting me. This is really exciting. I'm doing fine. We're going through the heat wave in the UK, but surviving, but still okay so far.
I've seen lots online on Facebook from family, friends that it's just unbearable. So good luck.
Thank you.
So it's nice. I was kind of thinking before we did this recording about when I met you, and I actually can't remember when I met you because I've known you now. I think it's like around 10 years. It was tech events, but I actually just can't remember what tech event it was because I know seen you at like FF Conf, React Girls. There was loads, but I actually can't remember the exact event it was that I met you.
I think it was because I started to attend codebar monthlies, and then eventually I organized some of them for a while. And I think it was
Yes.
that was when we properly met, but then I was actually attending the monthlies before I started organizing
Yeah.
them. And I think that was
Yeah.
it.
Okay. Yeah, because I was it's about 10 years as well, maybe
Yeah, yeah.
longer.
No, that's right. Because when I moved to London, which was in 2015, I went hardcore all in on all the local tech events. Just went all into everything because I was like feeling quite lonely and I was like, I just want to make friends. So I just started to attend everything.
Yeah. Ah, nice, nice. And yeah, I was just kind of also thinking back because I remember like I think it was like a React JS Girls. I remember us both being at the Cobalt Monthlies. Did we
Yeah.
do a front end London at Made by Many? Uh
Yes.
yeah.
Oh, that was lovely times. There used to be so many things going on.
Do you know what? I have this weird nostalgia for like life 10 years ago in the tech industry. And actually, I was talking to my partner about it recently as well around that main Twitter era. And actually, I was like, I feel really sad that that kind of online presence doesn't really exist anymore because I just always so remember like going to a conference, meeting someone, following each other on Twitter, and then just following their life for like the rest of the years. And then you would see them 2 or 3 years later, and I felt like I knew them because you're following along with their life on Twitter. And I just don't feel like that exists anymore. And I was saying to Adam, I was like, I feel really sad that that kind of online existence doesn't really exist anymore.
It's so complicated. I miss it too. It feels like at the time everything is one place and now it's fragmented. And this is the real issue right now is that after what happened to Twitter, people went to LinkedIn or they went to Mastodon or they went to Blue Sky or like me, they went to three places and drive themselves a little bit at overcapacity at many times. And but there used to be, at least in London, it used to be like a tight community. We all would see each other, we all knew each other, even if it's just like passing by saying hi, but we were connected online in one place and that was like community, like the tech community, and it was wholesome. And now obviously with pandemic and the things just fizzled out and many meetups have not come back since, and that it's there's a slight attempt at comebacks, but it's not the same, and it's very hard to be everywhere at once now.
I was really hoping that Blue Sky would be kind of like the next Twitter thing for me. But for me it's just not it's just still not the same as like that era of Twitter 10 years ago.
I know, and I feel like to me, it's so funny. We everybody has complete different experiences. I feel pretty satisfied with my Mastodon and Blue Sky experience, and I feel like I've reconnected with a big chunk of the people and new people as well. But a lot of people don't have that experience at all, and it's quite sad, really, because we're all missing something.
Yeah.
It's
I was like, I wonder what that person is doing now because before I would have known.
mm,
Like, what are they
yeah.
up to in life?
Yeah, absolutely. And or sometimes some people like decide, oh, I'm not going to use Blue Sky, I'll only use Mastodon. And Mastodon has a slightly difficult entry level process, I think. For
Yeah.
back in the day, people would create a Twitter account, even if it was slightly unserious. And but it was easier to follow a bunch of people and say, oh, everybody's at this event. Maybe I'll recognize some faces and say hi. But even then, people would happily post when they were at events, and now it feels laborious to post a post about an
Yeah.
event you're at in three different places, and it's laborious and it's difficult and people are tired.
I remember going to FF Conf. I think it was the one 2 years ago where I remember seeing you. And I think
Mm,
that was one of the first events for me post COVID, like the bigger events that I did go to. And I think I saw like Ellie there as well. There
yeah.
was Olu, and there was all these people that like were in that era. And I was like, I need to go to more of these because it was so nice seeing all those people that to me were like that era for me. Like you say, those London people that for me, I was always following them and seeing what they were doing. And now I'm like, what is that person up to?
Yeah, it's so I've been spending so much money. I go to conferences, the UK conferences. I feel like I'm part of the boring furniture because I'm always at all of them because I want to see people. And it takes the effort is much bigger these days and more expensive as well. And it's so sad.
Yes. 100%. And actually, conferences is something I want to talk to you about because I did see on LinkedIn that you just emceed your first
I
conference.
did.
Huge congratulations. How did it go?
It went really well. I mean, from the audience perspective, everything was great, I think. I had not any complaints. I had really good fun. I do admit I was so nervous. I remember like in the morning, I did the first introduction and then we did the Q&A and then we went for a break, the first break. I was shaking. My hands could not stop shaking. I was as because when you do a talk, you are nervous. The nervousness usually fades away after the first minute when you start speaking and you're rehearsed. When you are emceeing, you actually have to be slightly prepared for the things you're not may happen that you're not very prepared for.
Yes.
You have a little script, but because of the Q&A, it was work all day. I had to pay attention to the talks because sometimes questions would come in that have been answered during the talk, so you don't want to repeat those questions. So you monitoring the questions coming in from the audience, or you also have to have your own backup questions just in case the audience doesn't submit questions because you have to fill the time or something unexpected happens and you have to fill the time. It was hard work. Don't underestimate the work, but it was so much fun. It was really, really good fun. I started to be quite relaxed after lunch. I was like, okay, I think I got the gist. I'm in
Yeah.
it.
Emceeing is hard, like you say. It's so much more mentally exhausting because like you said you've got to be on the ball, and like you said with the talk you can kind of give the talk, the half an hour talk, and then sit back, relax, and then go,
Yeah.
I'm done, I am done. Particularly if you
Yep.
go, I always like to go before lunch because I find if I go after lunch I can't eat because I too am
Yep.
always too nervous. But with emceeing it is literally all day. You have to be on the ball all day, and like you say, prepare for all these scenarios. And it's so funny, I've seen MCs before and I'm like, it looks so effortless. And I know how much work goes into making it look so effortless. Like it's a lot.
It is a lot. I was writing the intros for all the speakers, and I was like realizing because the MC of the previous day, this was a 2-day conference. He's an incredibly funny person, effortlessly funny. I think I can be funny too. I need to back myself up. But when I'm nervous, I'm like, I'll stick to the script. I will stick to the facts. If a joke comes out, great. If it doesn't, I will not force it because I was very nervous. It was also this is so not not gross, but it's quite funny because this is the heat wave that I'm going through right now. I remember the end of the day, I was sweating. I was sweating so much. They came to a point that I was like thinking, oh dear, all the photos and all the videos is gonna be just like my sweat stains. It's like putting my hair in front of my armpits, just like I was just it's like I don't want to think about this. Why am I thinking about this?
Whenever I do like a big codebar event, now, the big two once a year, I always think, even if it's winter, I will be boiling. So, like,
Yeah,
I can go to this event wearing a jumper, but I absolutely have to wear something under this jumper so that I can take it off because I will 100% get really hot being on and off stage, interacting with
yeah,
people all day. And so I learnt that the very hard way quite early on by, just wearing the jumper with nothing underneath and then absolutely boiling all day. And it was
yeah.
horrible.
I was not prepared for that. I generally thought that yeah, I was boy. Lesson learned. I may take an extra similar top, similar color, or something next time to change. But I was towards the end of the day, I was like, I just want a shower before I socialize. I just want to have a little break and
Yeah,
cool
yeah.
down.
Well done. Like I said, I know emceeing isn't easy. It's exhausting. And your first time as well. So Yeah, just well done because it's a huge thing. I think, you've been speaking for many years at conferences, but emceeing is a whole new ballpark in like
Yeah.
being on stage. So yeah, just well done.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I hope more opportunities come. I hope I didn't scare everybody off.
And 2 days as well, did you say? Like that's also like a lot.
It was one day. The conference was 2 days, but I,
Okay.
I, I was there for both days, but I
Okay.
emceed the whole day. It was a very long day, to be fair. It was because
Yeah.
it's a very intense, high. It's a talk that is so intense in the theming that the audience is expected not to be junior developers. It's aimed at people who already have quite a lot of experience. So the talks can be quite heavy in a good way. They're just like packed with information and they're also long. They're around 40 minutes, 45 minutes plus Q&A. And there's quite a few of them. And it's a long day. It's a very intense, good day. Intense in a positive way. Does that make sense? It's proper training, it feels like.
It's a marathon, not a sprint.
Yeah.
Giving a talk is a sprint, emceeing
Yeah.
is the marathon.
Yeah.
So I want to take Anna back to when you started in tech. So I know you've been in tech now like over a decade, but
Mhm.
actually the really nice thing is, like I said, I've known you for quite a long time, but actually I have no idea how you got into tech and how that journey started. So yeah, where did your interest in tech start, and then how did that journey begin?
So I'm not one of the few. There's still a bunch of us who became developers because it was our hobby as a child. I'm one of those people. So when I was probably 11, 12, 13, I would say 12, 13, I became a teenager and I became really interested in bands, became a fan. And at the time, this is early 2000s, before the internet, before, when you had the family computer at home, and not everybody had internet at home because it was quite expensive, but you would go on the computer, on the library's computers, and I would go to my favorite band's official website. And they were very simple, just tour dates, a couple of news. And I remember thinking, I can do something much better than this. I need to figure out how, but I feel like I could just create something more juicy, something more fun, something for the fans. And at the time, little fan sites, they would be hosting on GeoCities, or little fan sites were popping up everywhere, built by children. So, and I was like, I want to build a website like this. And I just had to figure out how to. And because I didn't have internet at home, I decided, at the time was Internet Explorer, I decided to say, what would happen if I did file save as? And I put it in a floppy disk and I took it home. So basically, it saved an HTML file. And at the time, it would have been a CSS file, perhaps a JavaScript file, but I just saved that into a floppy disk. And I took it home and I opened those at the time, because those file, I think I would have been Notepad. I think it would be open with Notepad. And I just figured, well, let's see what this is all about. And I started editing because it was in English. I'm Portuguese. I could tell what some words meant. But I figured that if I changed some words, especially text that I recognize, and saved and opened it with the browser that my computer would have, despite not being connected to the internet, I could see changes. And that's when it all began.
Whoa, I love that.
Then I was this nerd that was on the school computer figuring out, okay, I made a page. I like it. I mean, terrible, atrocious. I still have all those websites, by the way. Atrocious code, horrendous. It worked. That's what mattered. And I figured, how do I put this on the internet? And at the time, it was quite easy to figure it out, to be honest, because the search engines were not polluted. So you would just like see, okay, I realized I was learning new words at the same time, like the word hosting. That's weird. I don't know what that means in Portuguese, but I clocked that was the word I need to look. So I would go to other fan sites, and people at the time would be bragging, oh, proudly hosted by, and I was like, is it free? Okay, let me go. It'll be GeoCities or something called Free Webs. It'll be just a normal FTP or file upload. And that's how I was like hosting the, don't talk about domains. I zero money. It was like the atrocious free domains that you could post, but I was like uploading those files. I was like, it's on the internet. There's an address. I could tell people and people would go there. That's what I cared about. And it started from there. And then then I became addicted. I just wanted to build fan sites. And I spent up until 17 years old. It came to a point I was running 7 fan sites. I was obsessed. And I joined this group at the time. It was something called fansites.org. It was a bunch of teenagers just running fan sites, and we would share trips. Sorry, my cat is here. I hope that's okay.
I
um,
love it. Bring in the cat.
Bring in the cat. Come say things, Jessie. She used to have a fan site. I used to have a website for her as well. But there was this teenager who was like, "Oh, this is how you can host a gallery, and this is you could hot link things so you save bandwidth." We were all sharing tips, and that's how it started. And then I realized I went to uni. I did a multimedia degree, which included video editing, graphic design, web design. For a phase, I was particularly keen on design and video. I ran a film festival. I took side quests with design and things like that. But then I finished my degree and I realized I'm okay at this, but I'm not excellent. I'm okay at coding. And I realized, yeah, this is what I have to do for my living as well, because I don't think I can break it in the other ones. And that's how it all started. I got my first job immediately out of uni, and here I am. Probably what, third, at least professionally, 13 years later, like, but for a hobby, probably more than half of my life at this point.
That is so cool. So, so cool. And I love that you just did save as, discovered this code, and then was like, I'm just going to see what happens if I change this with no
Yeah,
internet. You
yeah,
didn't have like the internet nowadays to tell you what to do. You
no,
literally just did it.
yeah. I feel like I feel like we were that last generation that was able to do that, because now people have a smartphone or a tablet, which there's plenty of fantastic tools that allow you to build a website without code, which is great, but the save as and actually opening the file and see what happens. I feel like something even in the operating systems now, or the way it's got lost, and the complexity of the websites these days. Back then, a website was a very we were building things differently, but they were readable. And I've written a blog post about this, saying in defense of poorly, not poorly, in defense of non-perfect optimized websites, where I feel like my blog is one of those that I feel like people should be able to inspect or view the source and understand what is going on.
Yeah, and I think just we've also just overcomplicated a lot of it now. I've kept a few of the codebar microsites just super simple with a HTML
Hmm.
file, a CSS file, and a JavaScript file, no bundle and nothing, because I'm like,
Yeah,
I want people to see that you can still build for the web really simply. And the reality is this is just a one-page site. Like,
exactly.
yes, I could do a static page builder, blah 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 blah. But actually, I also really don't need to. So I also wanted these examples where I could show and demonstrate you can do it still really simply without all that stuff. I remember when I first got into it, like you saying, the FTP upload. For me, it was Dreamweaver. For me, it
Yes.
was building in Dreamweaver, and then you had that little corner thing where you could just drag the file and then it would FTP upload it and then it was on your server. And even now, still server stuff scares me so much. But that was always so simple, that interface of just dragging the file, done. Like
Yeah,
so, so simple. Yeah, it's just it is like you say, it's so building for the web now is so different to 13 years ago when we
absolutely.
started.
I remember this would have been what, 2004, 2005. I remember it was front page before I got the Dreamweaver, before I learned about the at the time Macromedia products. It was the front page, and I remember it was the what you see, what you get type of view. You would have the screen split. You would see the code, but you see the output. And I remember that was like that clicked something in me that made me learn faster at the time. But the funny thing is that the software would have been in Portuguese, so I had to unlearn many things because I learned them with the Portuguese name instead. But the one thing I remember, and I could be wrong, but I don't think I'm wrong. Uh, I remember in Microsoft front page they had this feature said add a layer, and basically what it did, it would create a div, and you could put content in it, and then you would drag it in the visual bit and put it anywhere. But what it was basically position absolute div, but they called it a layer, and I memorized it, which was the incorrect way of memorizing what that feature was. But I was like, oh, I'll just add a layer, and then I would be horrified if in someone else's. I mean, at the time, the screen size variety was still between two sizes, but it didn't look quite the same in everybody's computer. I was like, the first horrors were when I was 13.
And with the language, Portuguese and English, was it hard to sometimes look between the two? Because I know I've had friends, like I've got a Hungarian friend, and she says, I know everything in tech so English that I actually can't really explain it in Hungarian because
Yes.
it doesn't really translate. So do you find that as well with
Yeah.
Portuguese?
Yeah. It's very, very, yes. It's hard. I feel like it's quite hard to teach in Portuguese because of that. Because you kind of also have to translate what it's doing, particularly with CSS. If you don't know, at the time my English was quite good, and my fan sites, I at the time I was like, oh, I'm so inclusive. I'm gonna do them in Portuguese and English, but obviously my English was not very good. It was passable for a child, but I remember thinking I wanted to explain to people, and I struggled because it was double the effort to translate everything, what everything does as well. But one thing that used to trip me when I start working was that people would write CSS classes or JavaScript functions and name them in Portuguese, and then everything else is in English. And I was like, don't do that. It's a bit confusing to me. I mean, I have to switch context quite a little bit. The way my brain functions is that if I'm in one context of language, I stick in that. I don't mix them. And I was like, that's weird.
You said at uni you were doing this multimedia degree where, you were doing videoing. At what point, or was there a point when you realized I could get paid to write code?
That started me as a child, really. I always
Okay.
had people when people realized that I could do it, it would be like little business would ask me stuff. It got bigger in uni because I needed to pay for my going out drinks. So basically, I've clocked that during uni. I was like, hold up. Instead of asking my parents, I could get money for this so that I can go to music festivals. And then that's when it clicked for me. But then I was like thinking, but this has to take 2 weeks tops. I'm not gonna waste I need my free time. I'm a bit so I remember I did this website for a chef. I did one for a bakery. I did small businesses, and I was just enough to keep me going through the summer, basically. But I was at the time I was also very not disciplined. I was just very needs based. But
And you know what? That's actually so similar to me. So I was doing a degree that was very like mine was called interactive media production. So it was a bit like yours, the design side of it. We did Flash, we did Unity
yeah,
gaming. And I remember a bit of freelance work I did was just for a photographer. And again, I was like, I want a bit more money so I can go out and buy
yeah,
alcohol. And I built this website for a photographer friend, I think for like 300 quid, like
yeah,
something like
yeah,
not a huge amount. And it
yeah,
was like 5 HTML pages. I did the design. And that was the first time I got paid to write code during the degree. And it was a bit like you said, like purely so that I can have more money to
yeah.
go out and party.
Yeah, exactly. That was like, I think, yeah, I would have been at the time. I think I did like 200 euros or something like that, just something really
Yeah,
simple. I bashed it in like one afternoon and then, mans and things like that. I was like, oh, I just want to
yeah.
go out. And then I remember in uni, I was part of the uni union, whatever that was, because I was really good at it. I look back but I remember thinking, oh, they asked me to do some posters for events, and I did the onboarding because, like Flash, I did the onboarding CD. If people join uni, they will get a CD that they'll put in their laptop. It was a whole little Flash app that would give them a bunch of information. I did that. I just casually did it because I wanted the free tickets to all the events. I was like, it's just like, fine, I'll do it. I just want to I don't want to spend money basically for all the uni events. And that was like my trade. I was like,
I
yeah.
love that. I love that so much.
And then eventually I had to get a real job and I was like, yeah, I guess I'll just be normal and professional.
Do you know what I've still done as an adult? I think maybe 8 years ago, me and Adam were in New York, and the guy, we had this month Airbnb, and he was like some artist. And he basically realized we both built websites, and he knew we also wanted to stay in New York for another month. So we basically traded to build his website for a month's free stay in his Airbnb. And that's as adults.
Excellent.
And it took us honestly like a day and a half. And then we got this Airbnb for an extra month in Greenpoint, Brooklyn, which is a great place to be.
Fantastic. Yeah, exactly. I've done those deals as well. I've got this handyman when for house stuff. He was like, "You make websites." And I was like, "And you fix things."
Do you know what?
So
We even had it recently with our wedding. Our photographer, she found out that we built websites. And so she was like, maybe actually, rather than you pay me, we just do a trade of skills. But actually,
yeah.
me and Adam at the moment, we're so busy. We were like,
Oh.
do you know what? We actually can't do it right now. But I kind of really like that idea of like,
Yeah,
like you've got this skill that people value, that actually, if they had to pay for it, it would be quite expensive. And actually, if you can build something that maybe takes you half a day, and you get something back, why the hell not?
exactly. I agree. I'm all in for that. I had a friend recently, he went to a music shop and they were just chatting and they realized the same thing. And for what the guy wanted, at the time, it would have been quite pricey. But my friend said, "What about that guitar over there?" And they were like, "Do you want the guitar?" I was like, "Yeah." And he said, "Yeah." And they was like, "Yeah." He was telling me all proud, like, "Oh, I got a new guitar because I did this thing for it." It's like, "Yeah, I agree."
We should do it more. We
Yeah,
should do it more. So talk to me about your job today. I know you've been in it for, I think it's 8 years. Yeah,
yeah.
talk to me about what it is you do.
So these days, I'm a front-end developer. I, every time I tell this to people, they think it's funny, but I literally work on the front of the front end. So I've been quite lucky that for the past 8 years, I've been working at Tech for Good agency. We mostly build websites for charities or other tech for good projects. We work with the open source CMS. That's what our backend guys do, but the front end people do the templating bit, which because the backend is actually done with the CMS, it means that we don't have to do all the full stack stuff. We just actually focus on the front end. And because it's charities most of the time, accessibility is an important thing. So we are able to focus deeply on accessibility, semantics, performance, and websites that really must be fast and easy to navigate because people sometimes, especially if it's charities with deal with illnesses, people are maybe stressed visiting those websites. So it's really important that they work quickly and efficiently. So that's what I've been working on for the past 8 years. But in the past, I've been a full stack developer, which wasn't my favorite thing to do, but at least I tried it. And right now, I still prefer the front of the front end, but I do appreciate that the reality I got a unicorn role. It's not often that this happened, and the full stack is the most realistic thing out there.
Well, it also sounds like you're just incredibly creative, and actually doing the front end allows you to do a lot more of that.
It is. It's. I feel like it. The creativity comes through when you are. It's such a saying that people say a lot. The constraints do bring creativity. If you have to build a website that has specific standards, I feel like, especially with the newest CSS things like the has or things like that, we have to come up with creative solutions that work without overloading the website with JavaScript. So it forces us to like actually be updated with the latest features that the browser are giving us, native HTML and CSS things, but also it focuses makes you focus on like how can I build this thing? How can I deliver this crucial information in a fast, accessible way? And you can be quite creative with that. And I think that is quite fun.
Yeah, I think particularly like you say, if you're building for people in certain situations, I always really remember a talk from Alice Bartlett at a Front End London many years ago, and she was on the gov.uk website, and she said normally people build a website and their goal is to keep people on the website for as long as possible. Ours is actually the opposite because we
Yeah.
know if someone's coming to the gov.uk website, it's not for something fun. It's paying a tax, paying a fine. And so actually we need to make it as simple as possible. So
Hmm.
basically they can come on the website, do the thing and go. So our goal is the complete opposite of what it is normally. And I was like, that's actually a really different challenge, but also I can imagine quite exciting for a front end developer to have to think about that quite often.
Yes, it's also quite exciting. I think the most exciting thing that has happened to me recently, it was the HTML element, the details and summary when it became baseline. The amount of accordions I could replace. I was thriving. I was like, oh my gosh, the amount of JavaScript I'm going to delete. I'm going to have a fully built, accessible feature just with HTML and a little bit of CSS, sure, but like natively working. And I'm going to delete so much code. The joy. Oh,
That is
oh.
satisfying.
Yes. It's also, I feel like people think, oh, the front of the front end is bo it could be a bit boring. I don't think it is. I think there's a lot of things going on, especially with CSS, and it's hard to keep up with. And the more you learn, the more you like find opportunities to make your code better. And that's the challenge.
So how do you keep up with all this stuff? Like CSS is changing all the time, the HTML elements are changing. Do you do that? Do you get time in work to keep up with this, or is it something that you do outside of work to keep up with all this?
It's hard for me to answer because the coding is my hobby. So I do look deliberately, I look for things for fun, which is not fun at all. It is fun. It's not fun. It is fun. It's not fun. But I also I all the jobs I've had so far, I love conferences. To me, conferences is a training day. It's a compact day where you are getting the people to already summarize in 40 minutes the things you're going to go home and look up, right? So I've always been from my first job onwards, we've always attended conferences. Those are training days. The company pays for it, or the company gives you that day, whatever it is. That's how I mostly keep up. I'm a avid reader of blogs. I'm an indie web person. I read so many tech people's blogs, but that's me, and that's not realistic for everybody. I do believe that conferences, which is you may have 2 or 3 days a year that you just pick a conference and attend. And I think it's good to pick a variety of like there's many front end dedicated conferences that you can attend. There's also JavaScript or a framework related conference. I think if you pick two or three, those are your training, and those should give you the pointers to go back to work and look up things.
Is there any conference that you go, I'm going to make sure I attend this one every single year? Because I think this is also a really nice time to shout out some of the conferences. I know
Absolutely.
particularly some of the more independent ones. I know FF for example, is run by, a family. Like I love that. So like, what's your conferences that every single year you go, I'm going to make sure I go to this every single year?
FFConf. I go
Yeah,
to FFConf. FFConf has also become a place of mental refugee because that conference in particular is also a lot about being a human and ethics and surviving tech and having hope and see. And I think in the past few years that is much needed as well. There's obviously technical topics, but there's also very human topics. And I feel like I've experienced burnout for a very long time. And it's always the conference that I go to and I leave feeling a bit more hopeful and happier. But there's State of the Browser in London. It's very cheap conference. It's on a Saturday, and I appreciate weekends sometimes are complicated for people, but they do put the talks online. So even if people can't attend, go have a look at the talks because they're online and they're free. I just came back from Pixel Pioneers in Bristol, which was also a lovely independent conference. There's a couple of conferences coming up in the UK next year, but there's also Web Dev Conf in Bristol in October. In all these conferences, they all promote each other. I know I'm missing some. I just did also earlier this year. I did All Day Hey, which was the last one. Independent conferences are struggling a lot, but they all support each other and all promote each other. So if all it takes basically is to follow at least one of them on social media, and you'll probably stumble upon the others.
And some of them have like open CFPs as well, which I
Yes.
think is so lovely. So actually, if you're thinking of getting into conference speaking, like those, like you say, are conferences
Hmm.
also that I know really welcome first time speakers and really support their speakers, pay their speakers. So yeah, I think it's really important, like you say, to support these conferences because
Absolutely.
it's getting harder and harder. One thing I want to talk about quickly before we wrap up is blogging, because I know you're an avid blogger. I think also for me, blogging is sometimes like an outlet that you can kind of
Mhm.
just talk and write and rant. So yeah, talk to me about like blogging. Like what is it about blogging that you really enjoy?
Blogging, I wouldn't be where I am today without my blog. Everything I have, everything I've been invited to, as nearly everything has been because of my blog. It's because someone stumbled upon my blog. I have a particular rule about my blog. My blog shall never have a white background. The reason for this is because I want my blog to look odd and different so that it's memorable. Even if the content doesn't speak to you, they probably will remember the layout. And I think that's okay. I started I've always had some form of blog even as a child. And because even when I was in the fan site community as a child, we were all keen to share tips, tutorials at the time or things like that. And so the sharing what I've learned has always been a part of my personality, and that carries on till this day. And I think people can take blogging in a odd way. It's like I can only post professional things, I can only post code, and I must be original. And I think that is the misconception of blogging. People think that they have to create the next big thing in order to blog about it, especially code. Oh, I came up with this thing that it's a package now and it's no one else has done it. That is absolutely not true. I cannot stress enough that nearly everything I've published code-wise on my blog probably is has already been shared by someone else in their own blogs or whatever. It's just that you will have a different voice to another tutorial. I don't sometimes I'll read a blog post that is wonderful, but the way it reads to me, the way my brain processes it, does not compute in my brain. I don't understand it. And it's nothing on the fault on the author's fault. It's just the way my brain works. So what happens sometimes is that I've picked up something that I didn't know, and I have my weird way of explaining it, and that may resonate better with somebody else. And I really encourage people to blog what they've learned, even if it's obvious, because it's not going to be obvious for everybody else in the planet. And it's going to speak to somebody, and it's going to cement your voice, cement your teaching voice. And that's really important because you also memorize it for yourself. And it has happened that one of my most visited blog posts is Hugo, the static website generation cheat sheet. It's just like I basically picked up a bunch of snippets of code that I use so often that I never remember them. It's like, oh, how do I do a loop? Or how do I, and I just put them all in a blog post because I was irritating myself. I was like, it's just there for me. It's my own personal documentation. But then it became one of my most visited blog posts because other people found it useful. And it was just, and I was describing them in a probably not professional way, but it resonated with other people. And I really encourage people to do that and not think that you have to be this creator, this innovative person, because in the end of the day, it's not about that. And the worst case scenario, if someone bumps into your blog and feels, oh, this doesn't speak to me, the worst that will happen is that they'll close it and they'll move on.
I think that's so right. I think one of my, like you said, one of my most quote popular blog posts was it was an intro to Webpack because and this was like it's 10 years ago, but I
Mhm.
remember we introduced it at work and I found it so hard to get my head around and the documentation wasn't that great and I was like I'm going to write a post so that I better understand this thing. And like you said, someone else may resonate with this and understand how I'm explaining it in my way, and it just exploded. And I remember I even got an email from someone on the Webpack team offering me a developer advocate job because they were like, the way you've explained it really resonated with people. And I didn't want the job. I turned it down, but actually, and it helped my learning because I was struggling to understand it. So I was like, I want to write it in a way so that someone else at my level may understand this as well. And I'm
Yeah.
going to write this for someone who, quote, isn't technical so
Yeah.
that they can understand it in my voice.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it not blew up, that's an exaggeration, but it was hands down probably my most popular blog post. And that wasn't my goal. My goal was just to write it so that I could understand it better.
Yeah, no, and writing is a way of studying. Like this is one of techniques of when you're preparing for an exam is rewriting
Yeah.
things yourself because when you're writing, your brain is wiring things differently. So writing for yourself in your own blog, and I really, people say, "Oh, I've created a blog, I don't get any visitors." But you have to drop that mentality. You have to write for yourself because a lot of people, I get a lot of people come up to me, "Oh, I know your blog. I love." Nobody knew my blog 10 years ago. I'm basically in the last probably 4 or 5 years, I'm reaping those benefits. It took years and it can be consistency, but and consistency is not in the algorithm algorithm way of thinking. Oh, I have to produce content so that the algorithm benefits me. It's not about that. It's not that type of consistency. It's more about doing it for yourself. It doesn't matter if it's once a year or, but the reasoning has to be because you have to drop a couple of goals in order to feel relaxed about it, because then it's not fun.
Yeah, I totally agree. Oh, thank you so much for joining me today. I've absolutely loved this chat. I had no idea that you got into tech through like music fan sites. I absolutely love that so much. And yeah, just thank you so much for coming on and sharing this story, your story, and your journey with us today. Thank you so, so much.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. I can yap all the time. I'm always yapping. I'm always talking. So I can talk
No,
for ages.
I love it. I love it. Thank you so much.
Thank you.